Hello, everyone. I'm Ron Presley, editor of Catfish Now. The September issue of Catfish Now is being dedicated to the growing sport of catfishing from a kayak. That September issue will have kayak catfishing anglers like Justin Johnston, Ron Hemmerhaver, Jesse O'Neill, Spencer Bauer, and more contributing to the content. In fact, my guest tonight will also be contributing to the September issue. Let me suggest that if you haven't already visited Catfish Now, visit catfishnow.com, hit that subscribe button, and you will be notified then when a new issue is coming out. And get used to the fact that Catfish Now is a mid-month publication. It comes out on the 15th instead of the 1st, or around the 15th. So, but if you just go in there, subscribe, it's all free, and you'll be notified when a new one comes out. As a preview to that upcoming kayak issue, I have Alex Kobes with me tonight. Alex is a B&M Poles pro staffer, owner operator of Kobes Kayak Fishing and Rentals. Come on here, Alex, and tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Hey, Ron, appreciate you having me. Once again, my name is Alex Kobes. I am a B&M Poles pro staff and owner-operator of Kobes Kayak Fishing and Rentals. It's a kayak fishing charter based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It is a fully outfitted charter. Basically, all that means is you just have to show up with a fishing license, water, and sunscreen. I take care of everything else. Been fishing about as long as I can remember. Been catfishing probably since I got in my early teenage years. And the first time I ever saw a big flathead brought out of the water, I was hooked. I'll never forget it, and it's been my driving force ever since then. So.
Well, I've had the pleasure of fishing in your area a little bit at least, and I look forward to going back. And in fact, I had 3 trips scheduled up to this point this year and did not get to make a one of them because of all this virus stuff. So I know the area a little, but what is that area like to you for fishing, especially kayak fishing? How do you describe it?
In all honesty, I think it is it's probably one of the best catfishing places in the nation. And I truly believe it is the best place to kayak catfish. Chattanooga specifically, we have a really diverse area of waterways. So we have 2 options. We're right on a TVA dam. So if you go north of the dam, you're lake fishing. So, you have this giant, massive, wide lake. And then if you go below the dam, you're river fishing, which is where I get a lot more of my massive flatheads and a lot of your really healthy blues. And then the access here. I joke. I feel like we have a boat dock almost every mile on both sides. So there's so many points of access that it really helps kind of break up all the traffic. And you can almost always find a little place where you can get a little bit of peace of quiet and still catch some nice fish.
Yeah. Well, I know it's a good fishing area. You also mentioned flatheads, and I personally really like to catch the flatheads, and I haven't caught all that many, but I do have my personal best flathead from your area. So, I always enjoy going back to that area. Do you have a favorite between the blues and the flats?
It's a hard saying, but I'd have to kind of agree with you there. I think the flathead is my personal favorite. A big reason I enjoy catfishing is the fight. And when you want that fight, hands down, flathead is the one to go after.
They're just a little bit tougher.
And yeah, they're just the muscle and the power behind them. It's unreal.
Well, how did you get into kayaking, and what keeps you in that sport?
Yeah, in all honesty, it kind of just came out of necessity. I had fished from the bank long enough that I'd kind of run out of most of my solid options. I wasn't happy with it. There was too much competition from other anglers. But I didn't really have the money for a boat, and I definitely did not have the money or even the know-how of maintaining a boat that I could afford, if that makes sense. I think a lot of people try to get into something cheap, and then you're always fixing it, which means you never actually get to use it. And then just kind of through searching YouTube, I saw these guys on these kayaks catching these massive fish out in the ocean. And I'm sitting like, well, if he can catch a Goliath grouper on it, I can definitely go catch a 70-pound flathead in my local waters. And it just kind of steamrolled from there. And in all honesty, all my friends, they're all like, why don't you just get a boat at this point? And I even ask myself that all the time, but there's something about the kayaks that just can't be beat. You're way, you're a lot lower to the water. It's a lot more of a personal fight with the fish. When I go out, I don't bring a net with me, which means, not only do you have the chance of catching a massive fish, but when it comes time to getting that fish in your boat, you now have to man versus beast, just grab it in its mouth and kind of drag it up there. So
I got to think that would be one of the big challenges. And in fact, I've got a picture of you with a fish here. Let me just show the folks this picture. And you must have been excited about that. What can you tell us about that big old blue?
yeah, that's definitely one of my prouder catches right there. I mean, actually, it's funny that fish particularly. That was an all-day event. I went to a new place. I'd never really fished it before, but I looked at it on my maps. I knew it looked hopeful. I got set up, and I think it was like my first set. I might have only been there 15 minutes or so, but just boom, big takedown, big powerful run. And as I go to grab it out of the rod holder and lift up on it, I feel the fish and then just nothing. And so it spit the hook. I reeled it in, and I saw the bait had spun and gone back up on itself. And I just didn't get a hook up. And I knew he was there. I had the feeling he'd be there. So I spent the next 5 hours sitting in that one spot, and it paid off. And I couldn't have been happier.
There you go. Well, that's an awesome fish.
Yeah, he was a big one for sure.
Well, it seems to me like maybe some of the techniques are very similar what you would do in a kayak versus just boat fishing. Is there any really differences that exist in techniques that just on the top of things?
Yeah, first and foremost, this one seems to really surprise a lot of people. But for me personally, I don't bring a landing net when I go kayak catfishing. I used to when I first got into it. Knowledge tells you need a net to land the fish when you're fishing from the bank or the boat. But when you're kayak fishing, it just doesn't work. The kayaks are too buoyant. So the resistance of the net moving through the water will actually push your kayak one direction or another. So instead of the net trying to get in the fish, you're actually pushing your rod and the net further away. So I dealt with that a few times, and I was like, you know what, the heck with this. I doubled down on my leader strength. I fish with 80-pound leaders, and I've honestly never really had any problems with it.
Yeah,
So
I guess that's one of those personal preferences. That some people want to do it one way, some people want to do it another. But I've always wondered about that. I can hardly imagine not being a kayaker what it would be like to be pulling one of those big guys in. It's got to be pretty tough. But anyway, what about bait? That's the other thing I wonder about. I mean, I also cannot imagine somebody throwing a cast net from the kayak for shad or something. Is that possible?
yeah, it 100% is. It all depends on the model of kayak and the brand of kayak you have. But typically when you see these sit on top open deck kayaks, most of them are about 31 to 33 inches wide. That's what I started off with. I threw a cast net from that all the time. A little bit of a learning curve. You kind of have to know yourself, know your balance points. I can definitely throw one a lot further on land. But the kayaks they're coming out with nowadays, the technology in them, how their hulls are designed, these things are incredibly stable. The one I'm fishing out of now, I think it's 41 or 42 inches wide. And it doesn't even, I don't even worry about balance points or anything really anymore. It is a very, very stable platform. You can stand up and cast and do whatever you want off of it.
Yeah. Of course, things like bluegill and, of course, skipjack you catch with rod and reel anyway. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't be much different. Just although I see all that skipjack fishing going on in really swift water, uh, are you able to get into those areas where the skipjack are?
So personally, this is just me. This is what I've found works. I seldomly use skipjack.
Okay.
I know, big surprise, but don't get me wrong. When I get my hands on it and they're up here running, if I do, I go and fish from the bank below the dam. I just get a
Oh,
high-low set up.
yeah.
But that's the only place they gather where I live, so it's the only thing that makes sense. But honestly, bluegill, sunfish. If your shiners are running or being in the springtime, I mean, those are great baits for me. They love the skipjack, but we don't have the population here, so it's never made sense for me to really waste an exuberant amount of effort to try to get them when I know they're not naturally here anyway.
Yeah, the
So,
other natural question about bait is live or cut.
I take great care of my bait, and like I said, I'm predominantly using bluegill, sunfish, brim, or shiner, and those are all very hardy fish. They're easy to keep alive. I keep them alive as long as I can, right up until the point of I'm going to put them on the hook. So I bring out, I've made a little aerator out of a bait tank. I've got a little bait tank on my kayak now, and I try to keep them alive. Now, whether or not I fish them alive kind of just goes with what I'm feeling that day, kind of where my area is, what my waterways are. But I guess live or cut, I hear a lot of people ask that specifically for flatheads. I think I've had just as much success on both. At this point anymore, I really don't know. I don't know. I think they both work just as well.
Yeah, and
So,
the flathead day and night thing is always a question too. And I think it's pretty much been laid to rest now that you can catch some big flatheads in the daytime.
yeah.
There used to be more of a thought that it had to be at night and on live bait, and that too has kind of been put to the test and proven you can catch them in the daytime on cut bait. That's what it amounts to. Well, this whole area of catfishing from a kayak, I think it's really on a growth trend. I think it's going to grow a lot more, in fact. And I was wondering, do you have any advice or anything for newbies that might be coming into the sport?
Yeah, tons of advice. But just real quick, kind of the things I really like to mention. First and foremost, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I guess. But basically, anchoring from a kayak is very dangerous. They flip very easily, but anchoring to catfish, it's really one of the best ways. You can suspend and you can drag, but that's really difficult. You really have to know your waterways. You have to know a lot of stuff. So anchoring is the go-to method. So when people get into this, I really recommend baby steps. Start off small. Your first trip out, don't pack your whole kayak with all your stuff and all your gear and everything. Take baby steps, and then you can start trying to land the monsters from them. But basically, just the only drawback I would say to kayak fishing is in the beginning, learning your setup, and like I said, anchoring. Just the way they're set up, they can flip very, very quickly, and then you can just dump all of your equipment. Luckily, I've been fortunate. I'm always very careful. I try to do things very decisively, or put forethought into them. I've never had any horrible accidents happen. I've never flipped it from anchoring or anything like that. But I'm on a lot of forums, I'm on a lot of groups, and there's a lot of guys that post almost every single day, somebody different, and you can hear about it. But a lot of the times, it's just they weren't smart about it.
It
So
happens, but be smart, huh?
be smart. Yeah, exactly. Be smart. Take baby steps. Um, but other than that, I think it's a true advantage. I really do. I think you can't cover as much ground from them, but the cost to get into them, the way to navigate them, just everything's so much cheaper, and you can save a ton of money, and then you can put that money into better gear if you want, or save it and put it into something else.
Definitely more economical than a powerboat,
Right,
without a
yes.
doubt.
Yeah.
Well, how can folks get in contact with you, Kobe, if they're interested in maybe a guide? You guide, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I own
Yeah.
a fully equipped kayak fishing charter. Basically, if you were to come out, you get your own kayak, you get your own rods, and then I do everything for you. You need your own fishing license, but basically Google. I have a website. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. But it's the same name as my business, Cobus Kayak Fishing and Rentals, and just you can Google it. You can look at it on Instagram. It's all under the same name. One easy way to find it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Alex, for sharing your expertise with us. Y'all hit that thumbs up if you like the video and click the little bell if you'd like to get notifications on future videos. I really think kayak catfishing is going to grow a lot more from where it is now, and it's getting pretty big already. Actually, there are tournaments and so on. But be sure to check out the September issue of Catfish Now. It's going to be dedicated to the sport, and we've got some good contributors for that month. So go in there, catfishnow.com, and subscribe. Uh, hit the little bell for notification on here. Like I say, if you like the YouTube. And in the meantime, just fish with passion.